Um, all right, so for our last talk for this session, we're going to have Brian Jackson, who is on the faculty at Boise State, tell us about the Planetary Science Journal, which is relatively new. It's been around for what I think like 7 years or so, almost 10. Oh, okay.
2019.
Oh, 2019. Okay, so getting towards 7 years. And it's one of the less well-known journals in the AAS portfolio. So Brian is going to tell us more about Planetary Science Journal, and I'm sure we will all keep it in mind for our next article.
Great. Thanks very much. Yes, my name is Brian Jackson. I'm faculty at Boise State University, but today I'm representing the American Astronomical Society's journals. In particular, I want to tell you a little bit about the Planetary Sciences Journal and give you a little bit of a peek kind of behind the curtain for what that publication process looks like, kind of as a way to encourage you to consider submitting papers to the journal. It is a planetary science focused journal, of course, but as we learned this morning, exoplanets are planets. So you all are perfectly qualified to submit to this journal as well. So the Planetary Science Journal is one of several journals that are run by the American Astronomical Society. You're probably more familiar with the Astrophysical Journal, the Astronomical Journal, maybe the APJ Letters. Planetary Science Journal is just the newest of those journals. So it involves a lot of the same processes and support that the other journals at the AAS involve. This is our website. You can find us very, very easily. You're certainly welcome to email me. There's my website. I think my Twitter handle is dead, so don't tweet at me. Yeah, so this is what the journal website looks like. And if you've ever seen the APJ journal website, it looks exactly the same. That's because it's exactly the same publisher, exactly the same host. But planetary science is focused specifically on recent developments, discoveries, theories in planetary science, and welcomes all aspects of investigation of the solar system and other planetary systems. We do regularly publish exoplanet papers. We are, as the editors, kind of broadly construing the scope of the journal. So we actually see submissions for mission concepts, field measurements, lab measurements, instrument development. We don't turn down very many papers. Usually they're pretty far afield, and very often we just direct them to another journal and don't sort of kick them out altogether. Yes.
The supplement series would be, for example, the big papers with MDL, detailed analysis, traditionally, the AppJ supplement series might have something like a big compendium of results without detailed scientific interpretation. A software tool would be directed to Astronomical Journal. If those things have a planetary science or exoplanetary science bent, would you also welcome them there, or would you prefer that things that fit very naturally under those categories continue to go to AJ or AppJ supplement?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So let me first start by clarifying. The different journals have traditionally had sort of a little bit different focuses. AppJ Supplement, for example, has been kind of the journal where you submit your big catalogs to, and like as was just said, if you don't have a specific big science interpretation, but you think the catalog would be broadly useful, you can publish it there. If you have a planetary related catalog like that, you could still submit it to the PSJ. I don't think we would decline to publish that, but you would, of course, be welcome also to submit it to AppJS. The walls between the different journals are totally permeable. So I was hired as an editor for the Planetary Science Journal, but I do AppJ, AppJL. So there's not a hard wall between the different ones. And you can submit to one journal, and if the editor thinks, oh, this would actually be more appropriate for another journal, it's very easy to move between the journals. Yeah, but that's a really good question. Sure. Oh, of course. I'm sorry. Let me clarify the acronyms. That's what the question was. Yes, forgive me. It's all this jargon. So we have the Planetary Science Journal, which is PSJ. AppJ is the Astrophysical Journal, and that tends to be more physics focused, not exclusive, but more physics focused, maybe less observational. There's the Astronomical Journal, AJ, that's maybe more observational. There's AppJL, that's the Astrophysical Journal Letters, and that's those are supposed to be articles that are higher impact, broader interest. It had been for a long time, the AppJL letters were limited in length. That is no longer a restriction. There is no length restriction for AppJ letters papers. I think this is not widely known. We ask that you keep the articles concise, but there's no hard limit. Then in AppJS, the Astrophysical Journal supplement, which is the sort of longer form articles. I think that's all of them. I'm going to be embarrassed if I missed one, but I think that's it. Okay, so how do you submit a paper? If you've ever submitted a paper to the IOP, the Institute of Physics, that's any of the astrophysics journals that the AAS journals supports, you know the process. The process for submitting to PSJ is the same process as for the AppJ, AppJL, AJ, APJ, all of that stuff is the same. Research notes of the American Astronomical Society. That's the one I missed. This one right here, the research notes of the American Astronomical Society, RNAAS. That is a journal for short results. Maybe you have an interesting kind of back of the envelope calculation that you want to get out there and share with people. That's the place to send that. That journal is not refereed. So if you submit an article to that, you can actually get it online in the publication within about a week or two. They just do a basic quality check to make sure that it's not crazy, but there's no refereeing process. So again, if you have a short kind of back of the envelope calculation that you can express in a single figure or a single table, less than 1,500 words, Research Notes is the place to send that. Okay, but submitting to all of these journals is the same process. You would, if you clicked on the author information, you would get sent to a page like this. Here's the details for how to submit an article. It is worth pointing out, this is what I use myself. If you use LaTeX, there is actually a submit to AAS journals button inside of Overleaf. So if you have an Overleaf account, you can actually submit to the AAS journals directly from Overleaf. It's very, very convenient. It most of the time works very smoothly. Once in a while it gets hung up, but most of the time it works great. So what does a submission process look like for those of you who have not submitted before, or maybe you're not familiar with all the details? For the Planetary Sciences Journal, our chief editor is Dr. Faith Vilas. She will receive an email basically from the system saying that an article has been submitted to the queue. She will select a science editor. So there are four science editors for the Planetary Science Journal, including Faith. I'm one of them. I think I have the list of the editors later. But one of us be assigned to be the kind of shepherd for that article. Faith is the one who picks that person. Then the scientific editor will make a list of potential reviewers and send out requests for review. As a submitter, this is one place that you can help speed the process along. When you submit an article to the AAS journals, you are invited to submit a list of invited reviewers. I, as an editor, will almost always start with that list when I'm trying to find reviewers for your paper. That helps us immensely. So if you have folks you think might be good reviewers, folks who are knowledgeable but maybe don't have any conflicts, please feel free to submit a list of suggested reviewers. Don't ignore that category. You are also allowed to submit a list of deprecated reviewers. These are people you would like not to review your article. It is worth pointing out that the editors are not required not to send a paper to those reviewers, but I myself I've never sent, I think, a paper to a deprecated reviewer. So again, that's your opportunity as a submitter to provide us information that can help speed the process along quite a bit. Even so, it can take a while. When you submit an article to the journal, that's not when the clock starts. The clock starts when we find a reviewer, and it can sometimes take us several weeks to find a reviewer. So if you haven't heard back from us in like a month, that doesn't mean that anything's gone wrong. It may just mean it took us a week or two to find a reviewer, okay? So please don't get panicky. You're always welcome to contact your editor and ask them the status of the article. Very often we'll just tell you it's still being reviewed. That's all we can really say at that point. Reviewers are given 3 weeks to complete reviews, but I have to say that they very often take longer than 3 weeks. As you may know, the world is on fire. Reviewers are taking longer than 3 weeks to complete. We are usually very generous at granting extensions. So if you yourself are invited to be a reviewer and you find that you're going to have to take an extra week or two, don't worry about that. Just send your editor an email to ask for an extension, and we can very easily grant that extension. I have trouble thinking of a time that I had not granted an extension if it was asked for, especially if it's just a week or two. So don't hesitate to ask. So the reviewer will at some point return their report. The scientific editor will check over the report, usually just to make sure that everything's kind of appropriate language, that this professional report is being sent back, and then they'll forward the report on to you. If you are a reviewer, please be helpful and polite. The vast majority of reports that we get are that way, helpful, polite. Occasionally, we get a less than helpful report. Scientific editors are empowered to edit the reports that we are given. So if I get a report that has a lot of really good technical information, but then says something obnoxious or just mean, I'll just delete that part out, and the authors will never see it. So, but I'll remember in my head that you sent it. So please just send things that are relevant. Try to stay focused on the science, okay? And then there's we'll send a report to the authors, and you're usually given a 6-month deadline to revise. Again, that deadline is soft. It's really on you kind of at that point to make the process continue as the author. If you take a very long time to revise your paper, you will get a message from the journal saying, "Hey, it's been like a year. We haven't heard from you. Are you still planning to process to get this article completion?" If you take a very long time, the article will be pulled, but it literally takes 2 or 3 years before we'll actually pull the article from the process. But the best advice I can give you is to just keep in touch with your editor. It's 6 months in and you need an extra month because some code isn't working or you need a response from a co-author. Just email the editor and say, can I have another couple of weeks? That's not a big deal. So this process rinse and repeats. Hopefully your paper is accepted for publication and the authors will be sent article proofs for final revisions. If you are asked to review a paper, don't feel bad if you have to decline. That is totally okay. But please give us alternate reviewers. That is the thing that oftentimes hangs up, is people will decline and not give any alternates. Please give us some alternates. Stay in touch with your editors. Please sure to say helpful things. Respond respectively if you're an author. I won't go into the details of how to write a review, but the AAS Journals hosts a reviewer training workshop at the AAS meeting in the winter. So if you're interested in learning how to be a better reviewer, be sure to sign up for that this coming January at the AAS meeting this winter. We have double anonymous review at the AAS Journals now, and what that means is that the authors don't know who the reviewers are by default, and now the reviewers don't know who the authors are by default. PSJ defaults to this, but it is optional. If you are an author and you want to reveal your information to the reviewer, you are welcome to do that. There's no requirement that you stay in the double anonymous peer review process. I will be happy to stop and take any questions. Thank you very much.
So I think Kevin has a comment, more of a comment online, say, can the reviewer has been assigned status and the date assigned be reflected on the author article portal? That way will help us to know when the clock starts so we don't keep bugging you.
So I couldn't quite understand what you're saying. There's some
So
furniture moving?
basically, you were saying the clock didn't start when you submit
Yes.
the paper. It started when you actually find a reviewer.
Yes.
So can we put that date in the author portal so we know when the clock actually starts?
That's a good suggestion. Yeah, whoever that person, they should email me or I guess at me on Slack, and we can try to put that into the system. It's not set that way now, but it's not something I don't think we couldn't do. So, good questions.
So you mentioned, for example, that the authors can remain anonymous, but for example, with proposals they have to write the proposals in a different way to be anonymous. But with that paper, they can write it as usual. It's just that you don't show the authors, because sometimes they might say, we did this, or as we did in, and then parentheses, and refer to themselves. So do they have to write the paper differently, or it's just you just hide the authors in it?
Yeah, that's a good question. So if you're writing proposals now, you know that you have to write the proposal in a way that the reviewer couldn't easily infer who the author is for the proposal. There is no such requirement on the narrative of one of these journal articles. So you could opt for the double anonymous review, but then say, as I showed in Jackson et al. 2019, and review yourself that way. I don't think that the editorial staff goes through the narrative and cuts anything out like that. So yeah, no requirement. And in any case, it's optional. You don't have to stay anonymous. Other questions? I will be at the poster sessions, so feel free to grab me. Please don't hesitate to reach out and send me an email if you have any questions. We really want to be helpful for you, and not have this whole publication process be a black box or scary. Just come and talk to us. So thank you very much.